So far in these videos, I've talked about unicorns and I told you a fish story from the Bible. Today is a more amazing Bible critter in some ways because it actually is kind of like one of the old TV shows. It involves a talking animal. I'm doing these broadcasts to encourage parents and their families and kids to spend time in the Bible during this time of some social separation, but you could actually help by sharing this. If you think it's worthwhile, share it. Let some others see it. Numbers chapter 22, verses 21 through 35, records a story that's been one of my favorites actually since I was a little kid. Balaam was one of God's prophets in the old days. I mean, this goes way, way back to the time when the Israelites were just getting started. But his story is a complicated one. I don't want to get into all of that part of it, but what I do want to talk about is how God got Balaam's attention and confronted him about his attitude and potential sin. As a prophet, Balaam was supposed to speak on God's behalf, but it appears that Balaam was being led astray by greed. Balak, the king of Moab, wanted Balaam's blessings on his battles because when you get God's blessing, that's a good thing going into your battles. But according to God, Balaam was not supposed to go prophesy for Balak, but he still wanted to because Balak basically wanted to give him a bunch of money. Jude verse 11 says that Balaam's error was greed and his desire for money. But anyhow, you can read about that later. But God did not want him to go speak to Balak, but eventually he did say, okay, fine, go. But on the way there, he wanted to make sure that Balaam understood that he should speak for God and not just to please Balak. And that's where the amazing creature comes in, one of the Bible critters. Balaam was riding his donkey to see Balak, along with a couple of his servants, but anyhow, an invisible angel with a drawn sword appeared in the roadway. Balaam didn't see it, but his donkey did, and the donkey actually went out into the field and bypassed the angel and then got back on the road and kept going. When the donkey did that, Balaam beat the donkey, trying to get it back on track. Well, next the angel stood in one of the narrow spots where there were walls on both sides of the road, but it was still a roadway. And the angel stood there with his drawn sword, and the donkey could not get off the trail. He had to go on the trail. So what he did is he pressed over against one of the walls so that Balaam's foot was crushed between the donkey and the wall. And so Balaam once again beat her. Well, they got past the angel that way, and then at an even narrower spot, the angel stood in the road with his drawn sword, and it was too narrow for the donkey to get by. So what the donkey did was he just laid down in the road. This time Balaam got really angry and pulled out his staff, and he beat the donkey with that. And here's the part that it's kind of mind-boggling, because what happened is the donkey then turned to Balaam and said, "What have I done to you that you've hit me 3 times?" And Balaam said, now this is kind of surprising, because if one of our animals talked to me, if our dogs or the cat talked to me, I'd wonder if I was a little crazy. But maybe prophets are a little bit different than us anyhow. But Balaam then said, "Because you have abused me, if I had a sword right now, I would kill you." And the donkey said, "Am I not the donkey you've had for years and that you've ridden for a long time? During the time that you've owned me, have I ever done things like this before? Have I been a problem?" And Balaam answered, "No." And then suddenly the angel became visible, along with his sword. And he told Balaam that the donkey had actually saved him 3 times. If she hadn't gone around me, if she hadn't gotten past me, if she hadn't laid down, I would have killed you and let the donkey live. Now, as you go to talk to Balak, make sure you say only what God says. Now, we sometimes don't see the picture as God sees it. When there are things that keep us from going where we want to go, or when we get frustrated in various ways, maybe we ought to consider that God is saying, hold up. And sometimes we think we can do things without consequences. But God's in charge. God cares. Don't be so stubborn that a donkey has to put you in your place. Go back and read Numbers 22 and see how God speaks even through one of his critters. This amazing Bible critter. Donkeys are not that amazing, but a donkey that talks, that's pretty cool. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow.